there's probably three things that I would attribute confidence to. Going in that day, telling yourself, I'm going to be a blessing to somebody today. Mm-hmm. Their life will be better for having talked to me. Yep. Like that is an unbelievable position and framework to put your mind in before you start. And I think the second piece of that would be to say, I'm going to do the thing that I know how to do, and I'm going to focus on the thing that I'm good at. Because if I try to do all these things that I'm not good at, it doesn't lead to confidence. It leads to uncertainty. It leads to hesitancy, right? But if you lean into something you're good at, you can be confident in that. And then I would say the third thing is to be humble about your successes. Because when we're not humble and we get a big head about our successes, the minute we don't have the success, it emotionally devastates us.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Life Insurance Academy podcast. Today, back in the studio with Roger Short. Good to have you in here today, Roger. And the cool thing, I really want to talk about this topic is really, really special to me because it's really easy to be happy and encouraged and successful and confident coming off of a big sell or a big app or a big day. Mm-hmm. But as we know, life insurance is a numbers game, and more times than not, most of your day will probably be spent not making that sell. There will be the other activity. There's going to be probably a few days, maybe some days back to back to where maybe you don't get that sell. But we always know that you may have a bad day or you could have a bad week, but obviously if you put your effort and energy towards it and never quit, you will never have a bad month. And I do believe that in this business. Yep. But what I want to talk about is 5 rules to winning the day in life insurance sales.
Boom. I love that, man.
So this is for the people that are riding in their car. This is for the people that are maybe in life insurance part-time that are listening to our podcast religiously, and some days are wins and some days are encouragement. This is the person that can't afford to buy a full batch of leads, but they only buy 10, and they're either the smartest person in the world because their return on investment is through the roof, or they didn't sell their couple apps and they feel like they lost money, right?
Yeah.
But these are 5 tangible takeaways that you can win every single day, which is going to progress you towards your goal, towards your success, towards whatever you want to accomplish in this industry. And if you follow these 5, there's no way you cannot make good.
Yeah, and some of the inspiration from this has come from a guy that many of you probably follow, Gary Vaynerchuk. We actually, I don't know how many years ago, probably 5 years ago. Maybe even more.
It's probably more than that.
5 to 6 years ago, I took Chris and Zach and another friend of ours, Bowen, and we went up to Ontario, Canada, Toronto.
Yep.
And we went to a conference, and Gary Vee was one of the speakers.
He was.
At that event. So was Casey Neistat and some other people. Mm-hmm. And it was cool to get in the room and hear from a guy who's written great books like The Thank You Economy. Got another book called Jab, 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 Right Hook.
Yep.
Runs VaynerMedia. As you know, if you follow social,
aspiring to buy the New York Jets.
Yeah. He always wants to buy the New York Jets. He's always frustrated with the losses, but he's certainly an influencer in the space, and he talks about how he starts his day to try to have a good attitude. And as an entrepreneur, your entire day is ruled by the attitude you go into the day with. There's no way around it. If you go into the day with a bad attitude, you're generally going to have a bad day.
100%.
And so it's ruled by the attitude that you have, and keeping the right attitude is absolutely paramount to having success in life insurance sales, because it's going to change from day to day. Because oftentimes we put the pressure on the results. Yep. We put the pressure on the performance. If we get a charge back on a good sale that we had, it can derail your entire attitude or how you focus on that day. But I like what you said, the consistency of your action. You may have a bad day. You may even have a bad week, but it's very difficult to have a bad month in this business.
Yep.
And once you know that and you know how to learn to start your day and maintain the right attitude, you can win and have success. So what do you got, Zach?
I want to start everybody with a question before we get into these 5 rules. And it relates to rule number 1, which rule number 1 is, I'll have to go ahead and tell everybody, it's confidence. It's to be confident. Rule number 1 is to be confident. And the example I would have here is, have you ever personally yourself, or maybe you, Roger, I'm talking to you and I'm talking to everybody, and I know this is true for me, but let's say you're having a really good week over the phone, in telesales, or maybe in homes, however you're doing it, you're having a really good week. When you call that next person, or when you sit down with that next client, what you're feeling there, you know you're probably going to help the family. You're probably going to be able to put them in a better position. But if you're imagining that right now, imagine your attitude, imagine how you're talking, your energy, your conviction, all of those things, because this is what we're talking about, capturing that confidence. That's why people that typically have a really good beginning to the week, a really good Monday, Tuesday, they usually, their numbers excel and soar to very high numbers. Mm-hmm. If you have a slower struggle to the week, you're lucky to have sometimes a mediocre week. Mm-hmm. And this is all wrapped around the idea of confidence. It really is. And back to what you just said before this was, we want our attitudes and our confidence to not be based upon previous results or their lack of, right? Because if you just had a bad sit, or somebody, Miss Betty just slammed the door on your foot and told you never come back again, you roll into your next sit or your next phone call, well, your attitude may be off, your confidence isn't there, your whole energy you're putting off is going to affect everything.
Yeah.
It's not up to them, whether they buy or not, to put us in a good mood or make us have a good day. It's up to us to be a spark in their life, to be a difference maker in their life, to us to be that positive energy, that helpful person, that teacher, that educator, the family friend, the advisor, to make them have a good day regardless of the result. Mm-hmm. That mindset is very important. And that I wanted to say that because that kind of leads us into being confident.
I would say that for me, I think like as you're talking, like I'm thinking about people, I'm thinking about agents that I've learned stuff from. We teach and we train on how to have success in sales. Mm-hmm. But while we're doing that, we're interacting with real life human beings who are out there doing, and interacting and helping families, and we learn. So we are massive learners ourselves. We're getting to learn from some of the best because while we may be teaching this one thing, they're teaching us something else. And I think a lot of the times we learn things from other people in the form of not as much as a skill set, but as much as their attitude.
Yep.
And so their attitude leaves a lasting impression on who they are and how to have confidence. And I would say there's probably three things that I would attribute confidence to of walking into a day. And you already said one of them. Going in that day, telling yourself, I'm going to be a blessing to somebody today, regardless of what happened yesterday. When you pull up to that door, if you're a door knocking a lead, or when you get on that phone call and they're getting ready to answer the phone, your mindset should be, I'm going to be a blessing to them today. I'm going to help them in some way. I'm going to leave them in a better place than they were before I engage with them. Their life will be better for having talked to me. Yep. Like that is an unbelievable position and framework to put your mind in before you start. My good friend, college roommate, his wife was in the business with us for a while. Her name was Julie Walker. Do you remember Julie?
I do.
Jason and Julie. She was in the business with us for a while, and man, like her grandfather passed away, and it became a passion of hers. And when he passed away, they thought they had themselves taken care of, like finances, and they were kind of private about their money. They were well off. And grandma didn't really know how to handle everything because he took care of everything. But he had plenty of money in the bank. Well, what ended up happening was he didn't pass away right away, but he needed nursing home care. He had a stroke, was not able to communicate, went into nursing home, bled through all of their savings. And then when the costs were exceeding what their income was, she started putting money on credit cards. And nobody knew this because they were a private family. They were successful. He took care of everything, and now she's trying to manage it. When he passed away, she was in financial devastation because of that. Well, Julie, it gave Julie a passion to help people in that situation. She's gone on to now they have 3 or 4 kids, and she's a mom and full-time mom now. But she told me, she said, Roger, I just take the attitude that I am going to be a difference maker in their life today. When I walk up to that door, I'm going to be the biggest difference. And it comes with that intentionality. And I think the second piece to that would be to say, I'm going to do the thing that I know how to do, and I'm going to focus on the thing that I'm good at. Because if I try to do all these things that I'm not good at, it doesn't lead to confidence. It leads to uncertainty. It leads to hesitancy, right? But if you lean into something you're good at, you can be confident in that. And then I would say the third thing is to be humble about your successes. Because when we're not humble and we get a big head about our successes, the minute we don't have the success, it emotionally devastates us. One of the things I've always respected about you, Zach, is like, you're always here. Like you never get up here and you never get down here and you're kind of always here.
Yeah.
And some people are emotionally higher and lower, but I think the emotionally, people who have a high emotional IQ manage themselves so much better. Yep. So that goes into, for me, that's the formula for being confident.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is you have to have a level of self-awareness, right? Self-awareness of what you're good at, what your skill sets are. How did you get good at that? How can you get better at that? Because confidence, you continue to build on itself. You look at the best players in the world in any sport. You could say hockey. You can say, basketball, whatever it is. It's repetition, doing what they know, finding ways to do that a little bit better, but you already have the support and baseline of confidence there. I'll tell you the funny thing, Roger, that I would always tell myself, I'm a very competitive person, but quietly competitive person, and I've always been that way. I would do the best I absolutely could, and I would be happy and still not satisfied with that, but I would be happy. Every single day, I would say, you're not that good. You're not that good. And I would set out that day to prove myself wrong. And that would help me with staying humble, but also staying hungry on the other side of that. And it was never in competition with anybody else other than myself. It was finding ways to motivate and push myself to another level. And that challenge, that internal monologue, it would allow me to build confidence. But it's hard to build confidence if your platform that you're on keeps changing or shifting, meaning we know we have just a tiny bit of confidence when you try something new or learn something new. As humans, we naturally kind of avoid change and challenge, but once you're in it, you can't go anywhere and you need to stick with it. I know on our another podcast we talked about was that consistent activity. We talked about pushing that forward. What we want to do and what we want to accomplish is stay focused, stay committed, and go with what you know, and you will have an abundance of confidence.
Yeah, I think it was Kobe Bryant. They asked him, Kobe, what sets you apart? How do you rise so much, when there's so much competition out there? And he said, I'm not competing against anyone. I'm competing against the best version of myself, of who I can be and who I can become. And that allows for that confidence and always staying humble, but always staying optimistic about more and improvement and staying in there. So what's rule number 2, man?
Yeah. Well, before we get to that just reminds me of something that's really cool. There was a commercial, and Adam, you may know this because you're a video guy, I don't know if it was recent. Maybe it was last year, the year before. Heck, I don't know. But it was a person racing themselves on a bike on a wooden track, and there was the shadow of them that they were racing against, and it was themselves. It was their best time or their record time.
Right.
Anyway, it was really cool. It was really inspiring. It was all related to that same thing. I'm sure Adam will be able to find it and throw it up somewhere.
I actually talked about that in my last talk in Dallas when I was there a few months ago.
That commercial?
It's actually a study that was done.
Yeah.
They actually did a study with people, and they got them to compete, and they created a scenario where they had to race as hard as they could on their bikes, and they recorded them, and then they did once around the track just to get the feel for it. Then the second time they said, do as hard as you possibly can. They did the performance, and then on the third one, they said, okay, now you're going to compete against yourself. And they played the video avatar of themselves.
Yes.
And they outperformed their best performance just by realizing that, hey, I can perform. And studies showed that they had that in the reserve, in the tank already. It was latent energy stored up, and they just needed motivation to push past the previous best version of themselves. Yep. And they said that people were only operating at maximum at about 75 to 80% of what their full capacity was, even when they thought they were doing their best.
Yep.
like that gear was in there and it's latent energy. It's stored up.
Yeah,
like this is
really
a scientific study. So
that confidence is the memory of success there. So
that's right.
That's really cool.
What's rule number 2,
Rule
man?
number 2 is really cool. It's really important. It's positive vibes only. And I live by this because I can't stand negative people. Like I can't. Like it's a downer. It affects the culture. It spreads faster than COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it stuff goes everywhere. But having positive vibes, understanding that we all deal with challenges. Negativity's never helped anybody.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be able to push through, be optimistic, find if there is a problem, there is a challenge, find the silver lining in it, find the win in it, and figure out where we can move forward in order to get better, to prevent or to, lessen the challenge the next time. And that whole optimistic mindset is moving forward. Positivity is associated with moving forward. Negativity is associated with stopping or going backwards.
Mm-hmm. I just saw another study actually on.
You're a scientist.
I know, I know, but I was reading this over the break, and they talked about what is the difference between people who advance? Is it more positive thinking or is it less negative thinking? And the speaker who was speaking and who cited the study that I was reading what he was doing, and he said he asked his audience, and almost invariably everybody comes back and says more positive thinking. And he said it's actually not. It's the studies will show that it's less negative thinking that actually helps you achieve a higher result. But if you think about it, if we remove negativity and negative thinking out of our life, what's remaining is only optimism, is only positivity. But too many people are trying to think positively, put themselves in positive environments, but yet they will still put themselves in a very toxic negative environment where there's gossip and complaining and whining and whatever other words you can by people. And it may not seem like it's overt negativity, but it pulls your energy in the wrong direction. And so who is your community? Who is your community?
Yeah, I would like to add, I think you need to be careful with the positivity side of it, because I think people they try to avoid the negativity by having an over amount of positivity. And what I mean by over amount is an unrealistic expectation set, and they deem that as positivity. Oh, I'm going to be positive because I'm going to sell 40,000 this week. Yeah. And then you can actually create negativity by setting that unrealistic expectation, and then you can be disappointed inside of that.
I would say just by removing pessimism and negative talk and negative environments from your life, you can have a healthier focus and a perspective on winning. That's there when you remove that. What's rule number 3, man?
Rule number 3 is strengths over weaknesses. And this goes a lot back to what we talked about in confidence, but instead of spending most of your time and energy on your weaknesses, let's focus on building and embracing our strengths. There are strengths for a reason. We all are different. Even in our team here, me, you, and Chris, it's funny because people get to know us are like, wow, y'all work so good together. But we are 3 completely different people.
We are.
With different strengths, with different weaknesses, but we complement each other so well that it just works. So being able to embrace your strengths and minimize your weakness, you don't want to forget them. You want to work on them. You want to make them not a weakness, but you also want to strengthen your strengths.
Yeah. So if your personality, stands out when you're talking or communicating or in a room and an environment, use that to your advantage. Master that craft. Master the ability to not just talk, but also now to say, hey, if I'm a good talker, I can connect with people, but am I a good listener so I can be a great communicator? Because great communicators are actually listeners and speakers, right? They do both. Yep. Sometimes you're not a great communicator, but you might be a great presenter, but you're terrible at leading or you're terrible at moving people, almost because you like the sound of your own voice. Lean into what you're good at.
Yep.
And triple down on the thing that you're good at, and stop trying to fix everything that's wrong with you. And I think you'll rise much faster if you focus on your strengths over weaknesses.
And I want to talk about rule number 3 here: strengths over weaknesses in a leadership perspective. This goes also for your agency, for your company, for your leadership. whenever you have a team, whenever you have a group of people that you're managing, you're working for, you're mentoring, you're coaching, and you're trying to build an agency, a lot of times leaders feel that they need to put all of their focus on energy on the agents that struggle the most, that have issues with activity, issues with placement, issues with showing up to things. And you start to say, okay, how did I become successful? Well, if you're becoming successful, I'm focusing on your strengths, you're sticking to your niche, you're moving through, you're doing all the right things. But now as a leader, you're spending all of your time, which is extremely valuable, in resources, focusing on the people that are not doing that, rather than what would the results be if you focused your strength on the people that are leaning in, that are growing, that are putting their time in. What is that going to do to your agency and growth? So this strengths over weaknesses also goes towards leadership, in my opinion.
Rule number 4 that we've identified here is one that I really like because it's probably one of the missions of my life. I resonated with it as soon as we discussed it. And that is legacy is greater than currency. So rule number 4, legacy is greater than currency. I think a lot of agents are in this business. They get attracted to the trappings of what seems like success and financial success. And so the people with the Lambos, the people stepping out of their planes, the people, looking like they've got the best watches, and they're always showing off their watches on social media because I can afford to buy Rolexes and Breitlings, and they're always flashing their fit, whatever they're doing, and we get caught up in that and thinking that's success.
Right.
But I'll tell you, man, the older you get, the more you are focused on how are people going to see me as the way I became successful.
Right.
Not just how much money I have, but how I became successful. Did I actually make an impact with my life? Or is that a person that is admirable? How many people are going to show up at your funeral rather than how many people are going to watch your Instagram story?
Yeah. This one's so important. And I think you can relate all of these rules. We talk about winning in life insurance every day. Obviously, this is one when we're talking about legacy, we immediately think about our end results and our goals and what we want to be remembered for. But this translates exactly to what you're doing today. And what I mean by that is, yeah, you're right, Roger. I want to be remembered that way. I don't want to show currency or items that I've bought, but I want to see the impact or the community or the movement that I created. But how does that translate to today? And the answer to that is in how we serve our clients and how we carry ourselves every day. And that's the same to me is, and as you said this at the beginning, is walking to that home or as soon as they say hello on that phone is saying, I want to bless them today versus, man, I bought these leads and I really got to get a sale. Like you're talking about currency, you're talking about commissions versus purpose or cause or serving your clients. And I think they're very so closely associated right now, but throughout your lifetime, that pathway is drastically different, and that's where you see the difference there.
Yeah, your mission inside of what you do every day matters.
Yep.
So your mission matters. It can't just be about the finances, because if it's about the finances, that flash and the money will let you down. Right? You have to have meaningful significance with your life.
Yep.
I mean, the wealthiest man who ever lived, one of the wealthiest, Solomon, with a king and gold and palaces and wives, said at the end, it's all folly. Like it all means nothing. Who you are and the legacy you leave is the important thing. So as you're doing the thing you're doing, how to win the day in life insurance sales is to focus on the mission inside of what you do, because that matters. And that's the legacy is greater than currency. All right, last one.
The last one, and this is I don't want to say it's the most important. I feel like I say that on everyone, but this one's pretty darn important because you want all of these other things. But the last rule of today, the 5th rule, is hustle. It's hustle, man. And the whole idea behind hustle is you got to hustle. So you probably need to hang this podcast up now, or no, you got to wait to the end. But you got to get to it. You got to invest. There's not one person that is successful. There's not one person that has left a legacy, that has built an empire, that has accomplished the goals and visions that you want to accomplish for your family, however big or small, or what success means for you, because it all doesn't mean money and watches. But there's not one person that has accomplished their goals that did not work 24/7, 365, right? I don't care if it's Kobe. I don't care who it is. You have goals, and there's only one way to get there. So if you're one of these people, and you probably are because you're in this industry. If you weren't, you would be working a 9 to 5, or you'd be clocking in somewhere and clocking out. But if you are one of these people, I hate to tell you guys, but it's not part-time, right? It's not half-time. There isn't time for side hustles. This is your main job. This is your side hustle, and then your extra side hustle, right? That's the way you need to treat this. Any way to get there, every way to get there, every amount of energy, every amount of training, mentorship, coaching, all of that has to be included in your focus, your energy, if you want to make it there.
Yeah, I think it was Carlos Boozer who we hit when we were in Dallas this year.
Yep.
I was speaking at the 8% event. Carlos was one of the other speakers, and he shared a story of coming into the Dream Team, I guess, when they were the Redeem Team is what he was a part of.
Right.
And it's where the Dream Team actually lost in the previous Olympics, and he was chosen for the Olympics team. And they went to Vegas to start training camp for the Olympics. And they were like, hey, we're in Vegas. And practice was like from 11 a.m. to like 7 p.m. or whatever. And then they all went out, and what happens at Vegas stays at Vegas. And they went out, and they were going to, and they were coming in at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, coming into the hotel lobby. And, they had a night, and they were with everybody else. Kobe wasn't with them. And they were walking into the hotel lobby, and when they hit the elevator door, out steps Kobe with his security detail and with his gym gear on, walking out as they're walking in. And they look at each other, and they said, where you going, Kobe? And Kobe said, I got goals.
Yep.
I got goals. And Boozer and them got into the elevator, doors shut. They started looking at each other, and they were like, oh, I got goals. You have goals. Yeah, I got goals.
Yeah, I know
and the next morning at 5 a.m., they all met Kobe in the lobby, and they all went to work out together, and they went on to win the Olympics. But like Kobe set a different standard, right? He was hustling. He was competing against the best version of himself, right? And so that story, man, just resonated with me. Like some people just see it different, and they put the work in and they hustle.
Yeah, I say that the biggest point to that story and the biggest point to success in anything, in my opinion, is being able to find that within yourself. Because if you're competing against somebody else, if they slack off, you slack off. If you accomplish them, then you only have to be just slightly better than them. If you're competing with yourself and hitting levels that haven't been achieved, it's a whole different ballgame. Because if Kobe wasn't doing that, he may or may not went out with him, but if Kobe wasn't doing that, they would never saw that influence and realized, well, I got goals too, right? We have to focus on that, but hustle something you can't avoid.
I would say, one of the biggest books that's influenced my life, and we've had books here on the last couple of podcasts, because I think we don't talk about the influence of getting good content in here. They say that successful, who you're going to become in 5 years from now is directly correlated to the books you read or the content that you consume. And I'll say content you consume because too many of us are consuming content in 30-second and 45-second clips right now. And we're not consuming legit content. But the content you consume are the books you read and the people you associate with, right? It's that removing the negative and getting influenced by the positive. It's being around people who say, I got goals. Those environments and what you put in your brain is going to change your life. And Jack Canfield wrote a book a few years back called The Success Principles, how to get from where you are to where you want to be. And his first principle in this book is take 100% responsibility for you, 100% responsibility for you. And it goes back to this idea of hustle. Like if it's going to be, it's up to me. I got to put myself in the environment. I have to eliminate the negatives, positive vibes only, right? I have to stay in the space. I have to be confident. I have to, focus on strengths over weaknesses. I have to realize that legacy is greater than currency. And lastly, I got to get after it and get it done. So we want to encourage you guys to read some good stuff. It will help your life. It will help your business. It will help you stay focused on the important things. I love this talk. I love this podcast. We hope you found it valuable and helpful. And if you guys want to be in our environment where you can participate with us and get in our coaching, we do live coaching every Thursday morning, and we invite you to be a part of that. We have a courses and coaching program. It's unlimited. You can attend all the coaching events for the year, and you get access to our complete course library and all the new content that we upload. We give you a great community, and we're talking about the specifics and breaking down the details of how to have success in this industry that has so amazingly blessed us. We want to share it with you. We'd love to have you as a part of that. I'm sure Adam will put the link somewhere. I'm pointing to things right here where you can actually subscribe to courses and coaching. And if you got questions about it and you're not ready to commit, then DM us, reach out, and connect with us that way, and we'll answer those questions for you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of the Life Insurance Academy podcast.